up to 60,000 patients die on the Liverpool Care pathway every single year. And it happens without their consent. And to many, these are very shocking figures. 60,000 people a year. A third of families are also kept in the dark when doctors withdraw life-saving treatment from their loved ones. And despite the revelations, Jeremy Hunt claimed the pathway was a fantastic step forward. Now, he is with the health. He is the health secretary. And those comments that he had appeared to prejudge an official inquiry into the LCP. He said 1 or 2 mistakes should not be allowed to discredit the entire end-of-life system.
Oh, so if you just kill a few
just
people.
1 or 2 people dying shouldn't matter. The story goes on to say that an anti-euthanasia group said that the pathway is designed to finish people off double quick. It's a lethal pathway. And the review follows a public outcry over a string of disturbing cases that were highlighted by the day. I think this was, I forget where I got this story from. Probably the Daily Mail. But anyway, which patients or their families were ignored, and it goes into great detail. And the pathway involves withdrawal of life-saving treatment with the sick, sedated, and usually denied nutrition and fluids. And death typically takes place within 29 hours. But
wow.
You know what? That's a long time. They say that it's very painful. It's horrible to watch, in fact. The 60,000 figure comes from a joint study by a Care Institute in Liverpool and the Royal College of Physicians. And it found that many patients were not consulted despite being conscious when doctors decided on their care.
Oh, so they decided.
Just did it. They didn't say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Hey, do you have any objections to this?
No.
They just did it. And there's records from 178 hospitals that show that thousands of people on the pathway are left to die in pain because nurses don't do enough to keep them comfortable while the drugs are administered. This is like barbaric. This is worse than This is, I don't know. It's evil. It's plain evil. An estimated 130,000 patients are put on the pathway every single year. And concerns have been raised that clinical judgments are being skewed by incentives for hospitals to use the pathway. And we talked about that before. And we talked about the children's pathway, which is even sicker and eviler, but they are getting incentives to put these people on the pathway, to talk to the parents. Where the children are involved, they go out and actually try to sell the idea to the parents, telling them there's no hope for them. This is the most humane thing we can do for your child. It's disgusting. So health trusts are thought to have been rewarded with an extra £30 million for putting more patients on the LCP. And Norman Lamb, who's a care service minister, launched a review in November saying that there had been too many cases of families not being consulted. But about a month ago, Mr. Hunt just suggested that concerns about the system were relatively minor compared with its benefits. He said it's a fantastic step forward, the Liverpool Care pathway, and we need to be unabashed about that because it's basically designed to bring hospice-style care to terminally ill people in hospitals. Is that how they treat people in the hospice setting? No. They call that hospice-style care?
Well, yeah, but I mean, who's to say they're terminal? See, I mean, they're putting these people on this pathway before they're making these determinations without actually being able to back them up.
I remember a story about an elderly gentleman who they said was going to die. He's going to die. There's no hope for him. He had pneumonia. Let's put him on this pathway. And another doctor said, no, I can take care of this. I can handle it. And the guy's living and he's fine today.
It's very scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very scary. And lots of people don't want to die with lots of tubes going in and out of their body, he said, and they actually want to die in a dignified way. Yeah, so letting them starve to death over and dehydrate 29 hours is very dignified. Very dignified to deny food and water for 29 hours. So he said what should never happen is that people be put onto that care pathway without patients being fully in the loop and their families and relatives being fully in the loop as well. So the National Audit examined a representative sample of 7,058 deaths between April and June last year, found that in 44% of the cases when conscious patients were placed on the pathway, there was no record that the decision had been discussed with them. Wow. It wasn't their decision. And for 22%, there was no evidence that comfort and safety had been maintained while medication was administered. And it also revealed that 1 in 3 families did not receive a leaflet to explain the process.
You know what this is? This is population control.
It certainly is. Without your consent, you have nothing to say.
That's right.
You have they don't care what you have to say. They don't want to know what you have to say. This is what we're doing, and that's that.
Liberalism is the culture of death.
And I suspect those numbers will get larger and not smaller over the coming years.
And, of course, we have modeled our new health care system, the Affordable Care Act. We've modeled that over what they're doing in the UK. We've told you about the Independent Payment Advisory Board. That's 15 unelected bureaucrats who will decide whether or not you, depending on your age and depending on the number of years that you're expected to live, statistically are going to decide whether you get the operation or whether you get the pain pill, and they put you on the pathway, because that's exactly what's going to be going on here.
Exactly.
Okay, and here's the wonderful part about it. IPAB, the Independent Payment Advisory Board, of the 15 unelected bureaucrats who don't know you or your family, their decision is unappealable by courts, unappealable by Congress, unappealable by the President of the United States. They are an independent government within a government, and nobody can touch them. And if you think those guys are bad, you haven't met the new one. Here comes the USPSTF. The USPSTF. I'll tell you what it is. What this stands for is the United States Preventative Services Task Force, an independent group, supposedly, of national experts in prevention and evidence-based medicine. Now, these are the ones who told you didn't need a breast exam. You remember these guys?
Yeah.
Okay? Their decisions are also unappealable by the president, the Congress, or courts. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to decide which tests work and which ones don't. Now, recently, they came out against the PSA test for prostate cancer. They may have called that one right, because there are a lot of problems with that test. But they're the ones that came out and told women, women under 40, they didn't need a breast exam?
Right.
Now, so what you got two ends. At one end, you got the board making decisions about the individual. On the other end, you got another board making decisions about medicine as a whole. This is a very scary bunch. I just had my birthday. They're funneling me into, senior citizens are being funneled by incentives to not give them service and the kind of medical treatment they need. They're being funneled into this, what you call the pathway to death.
Right. To not discuss it with the family or even the patient, that shows you the level of disrespect for life. That there is no respect for life. When you don't feel that it's necessary to discuss with that person his life and how it should end and when it should end, or that you're taking control over that, you're playing God in his life, that is the height of disrespect for human life. And it just breaks my heart. And not to discuss it, let's say that he's not able to discuss it, the patient. The family wasn't even made aware in many cases. And as I said, that's only going to get worse. It's not going to get any better.
Well, the family doesn't get the option because the family isn't paying, because the system is paying.
That's right. You don't have a say.
That's right. So they're the ones that make up their mind about whether or not.
That's the height of there's proof of how people see life. Many people, and there's no value. They put no value on it.
And look at the incentives.
The incentives, the money was large sums of money.
Well, look at the incentives here. Senior citizens put a greater burden on medical care and medical services than people who are not senior citizens. Plus, senior citizens are putting a huge burden on Social Security and Medicare, and that's going hey, let's get rid of the senior citizens.
Right.
This is literally the Senior Citizen Elimination Act.